If you work for the Catholic Church and want to transform your parish, I'm here to help. My name is John Conza, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, the leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Today, we're going to talk about why development is not optional for mission. We're here with Amy Jungers, the development director for Gehlen Catholic High School. And I think everybody is going to be very excited. I can always tell, Amy, by the amount of dancing that the guest does, how good of an episode this is going to be. So I'm super excited.
You know what? If I hear a little music, I can't help but just bob with it. It has to happen.
It lives in your soul. It lives in your soul. Absolutely. Well, welcome to the podcast. We've been getting to know each other a little bit over the years. Our kids are the same age. They go to the same school. But I've been really impressed just as you guys kicked off this huge legacy campaign, and it seems to be going really well. There's been a lot of success, but I'm a person who loves follow up and follow through.
Yeah.
And I see you just knocking that out of the park. And I said, our listeners could learn from having Amy on the podcast. So we're going to let them have an opportunity to get to know you. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what led you into development work and how you came to be where you are today?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I think this is my very first podcast, so we're making history together today. I love that.
Well, fantastic.
So how I got led into development work, I think it traces all the way back to my college days. So I went to the University of Northern Iowa, and I studied communications and public relations. And while I was there, it really wasn't the experience within the major that brought me to development work. It was the extracurriculars that I got myself involved in. So I joined a group, and many people may be familiar or have heard of this. It's called Dance Marathon. And Dance Marathon, you've never heard of it?
No.
Oh my gosh, okay, I'll educate you. So Dance Marathon, it's a time where a lot of universities or high schools, they put on this kind of like a dance party. So it kind of makes sense as why I was dancing when we started. It's
I
in my
could
blood,
tell you
like
practiced
said.
somewhere.
We raise money for the local children's hospital. So at the University of Northern Iowa, we're in Cedar Falls. Our goal was to raise as much money as we could for the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. And multiple universities in Iowa participate in this. And during that time, I was on the executive committee, which was a huge blessing and a great leadership position to hold. But it also involved a lot of fundraising. And at that time, you're not quite as confident in your abilities, and fundraising was a little bit uncomfortable. It wasn't my favorite thing to do. It was hard to get people invested in a mission that I was invested in. But then fast forward, I graduated from UNI, Dance Marathon was put behind me, and I entered the marketing world. And I loved marketing because it's creative. You get a lot of passion through it. You're able to think outside of the box, which is super fun. And I was at the marketing department at the Pizza Ranch corporate office for about 5 years. But I knew that I was not fully being fulfilled. And I think that fulfillment was a spiritual fulfillment that I wasn't getting. And I told a couple people who I knew at Gehlen, I knew my kiddos would go here eventually. I said, if you ever find a position that would maybe fit, please let me know. I don't know what that is. Maybe in the lunchroom, maybe some helper in the classroom. And then one day I got a text and said, the development director position came open at Gehlen. I think if you want any job at the school, this would be one that you should apply for. I had no idea what it was, didn't really know what it meant, but I looked through the job description. I thought, hey, that looks fun. Get to build relationships, get to meet people, and get to further the mission of the school, which was very big and something that I needed to fulfill that spiritual side of myself. So I went for it, applied for the job, and I've been here for almost 6 years.
Wonderful. So yeah, you said that there was just something inside that you could feel like something's not fully implemented here. I'm not fully fulfilled. I feel like there's more. It's about more than just money.
Right.
And how can I unite my unique giftedness with my desire for this type of work? I'm wondering what surprised you the most stepping into this role, maybe coming from a secular, right? A secular corporation into something as missionally driven as a Catholic high school.
Yeah, I think one thing that I really enjoyed about Pizza Ranch that I was able to carry over into this position was building relationships. And I think when you're able to build solid relationships, you're really able to create a very strong foundation for whatever work that you're doing. So being able to come into Galen, being able to step inside my faith and share that with multiple people. I mean, there's hundreds of kids in this school, and what a joy to be able to be an impact to them and not having to worry about bringing up God or bringing up faith or making them realize their own giftedness, which I think is very important because, like you said, with not feeling fulfilled, like what were the gifts that I wasn't able to use in past jobs and being able to find that here. I think it's encouraging to know we have to be able to fill the cups of our students, help them find what they're gifted at. So when they do leave our doors, they're able to use their gifts to impact their communities they go into.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking about it. That's something that I've seen that you do really well. And so I'd like to speak a little bit about how do you confront that question, right? I mean, there's the missional side of it. There's also a very practical reality that comes with development as well, right? Which is that you're there to help steward the long-term financial sustainability of the
Mm,
entire mission, right?
right.
So why do you think it is? In my mind, this is kind of an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, you know? And I don't know if that's been true for you, that people
Yeah.
have trouble bridging that gap in their conversation of, we're going to dance around what we're really here for, which is that we need you to support the mission. Why do you think people find that to be so uncomfortable, whether they might be pastors, ministry leaders? Why is that uncomfortable for them? What are they afraid of?
Yeah, I think it goes to a couple of things. I think it starts with the experiences people have growing up and the conversations
Mm.
that happened around money within their own family units and how they have grown up to be able to talk about money and financials within their household and then going out into the world and how do you manage your own finances? How do you open up about your finances, whether that's to, your own accountant or your future spouse? And I think what makes it very uncomfortable is you don't want to make somebody else uncomfortable because you don't know what their past experience has been with finances. You may know that somebody seems very blessed financially, but outward appearances don't always mimic exactly what's going on in their pocketbook. And so I think it's a couple things. We want to make sure that we're not generalizing everybody and think we can assume everybody's state of financial where they're at. I think the gift and the ability that we have is to be able to bring people alongside of us in our mission and making them feel fulfilled in the faith aspect that they can make a difference and that it doesn't matter $1, $100, $1 million. They all sound very different, but each gift to an individual person can mean something very different. My $1 may be different than somebody else's $100. So being appreciative and making sure that people know that they're making a difference in the faith of so many students here and bringing them alongside you is important.
Yeah, well, and I think it comes back to that relationships, right? That you said is central to all of this. If you and I are not in relationship, you don't have any business
Mhm.
asking me for anything, hardly,
Right.
right? So I mean, there's a reality there, and there's two things that come to mind. One of them is like the worst welcome letter I ever got from a parish that I joined, which is not this
We
parish.
have one of those.
Yeah, and the letter was essentially a letter from the pastor that
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, welcome to the parish. This is how much we expect you to give." That was it. Now,
And you're like,
what
you don't even know me.
I don't know you, man. It's like I mean, I already plan to give. Like I feel that obligation to support my
Right.
church, but I thought one, it was he was very specific. He's like the equivalent of your pay for the first hour of work for the week to give that to the Lord. Which I thought that's a beautiful ask. My problem
Yeah.
was that's all that's all it was.
Right.
It was no relationship.
That's
It wasn't,
hard.
this is how you can get dialed in. I'd love a chance to get to meet with you, anything like that. It was just like, hey, make sure
Yeah.
you give. Welcome to the parish. Make sure you give. That was the worst. But you contrast that, we got to go to the Galen Ball this last year,
Yeah.
and I am a harsh critic of events. But
That's good.
but
That's how
at
we
the
grow.
I know, but at the event, at the end of that event, I had tears in my eyes. Like
Yeah.
I didn't cry because I'm a man, but I had a very manly little glisten right here under this
Yeah.
eye because you did such a darn good job of making us feel like, wow, this is a family. This is our
Yeah.
family. And it was one, like, so that relationship then, when you reach out and you say, hey, by the way, we're going to build a new school.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I want to be here, and I want the school to be here, and I want to support that.
Mhm.
Again, that relationship has to undergird it. So yeah, I think you're right when you say that's we can't assume people can or can't give if we don't
Right.
have a relationship with them. And I think that's huge.
Right.
I'm kind of wondering how you balance that, because it's not just about the money, but also
Mhm.
the money's necessary. It's the practical versus the spiritual, or not the
Right.
practical in partnership with the spiritual. How do you had mentioned something when we were first talking about this balance between faith and finances and how you navigate that. I wonder if you could give a little advice to our pastors or our parish leaders, other
Mhm.
school leaders who are listening. How do
Mhm.
you navigate that balance of faith and finances?
I think something that I've learned, you mentioned how we've been running with this legacy campaign over the past, it's almost been 12 months now. And I learned a lot through that experience. We worked with an outside company who helped us run the campaign, and they had a lot of great knowledge and wisdom to share with me since this was my first time running any sort of large campaign like that. And one thing they said is never apologize for the ask.
Mm.
Never apologize for what you need to make the school continue to run for your students. And that really made me step back a second. It's like, it's not me asking for the money, it's me asking on behalf of the school to make sure that our mission can further for our students. So I think that really does transpire into the parishes, maybe into the pastors. It's not you asking for the money for yourself. It's you asking them to be a part of something bigger. And I think a really great book that I've read over the past few years to try to get over that fear of asking for gifts is faith and fundraising. Like, how can you take your faith and move that into those asks and make people want to walk alongside you in that journey? So I think it's being able to never apologize for what you're asking for. It's okay if people say no. That's nothing that you need to be offended about because you're doing your job of furthering the mission and the foundation of either your school or your church.
I love that. Well, I'm a book fan, so now I'm gonna have to go put that in my my Amazon cart right away. But
You can
you know
borrow my
what?
copy.
Yeah. But I love that though, because never apologize for the ask, never be afraid of the ask. And even if that
Right.
ask is like for you to say, we need to do this big legacy campaign, we're not sure
Mhm.
what all the steps are. So asking for help in that area. Right. And
Yes.
that develops a relationship, and that and that becomes that foundation of trust then. And when you do
Mhm.
that well, then you see the value of that on the other side. What
Yeah.
what are the when you're reaching out to people, or when you're talking with people, even the staff there at the school,
Yep.
what are the common misconceptions that ministry leaders or the people that are part of this
Mhm.
process have about development?
I think one of the hardest things, it goes back to that financial side. Do they really need this
Mhm.
money? Are people trusting of how their funds are being used? And that really goes back to being good stewards of what we're given. And I think a good example of that is a few years ago, we received a large estate gift over $3 million. Like, talk about a huge blessing for a small Catholic school. What is one to do with such funds? You could save it for a rainy day. Is that the what that person wanted with those gifts? They want to see that money go to action as well. So it's making sure that you take the time to fully invest in each of those estate gifts or memorial gifts and making sure that you get them to the destination that will make a big impact. And so I think really being able to take each gift, study what would be the best thing for the school, and don't be afraid to do the research, I think is very beneficial to make people trust in the process and then want to give to that organization when they see you being a good steward of the gifts that you are given.
I want to talk about that $3 million gift for just a moment.
Mhm.
One, yeah,
Mhm.
like this huge for any
Yeah.
small organization, which a lot of
Right.
our churches would be classified as small businesses, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our Catholic
Mhm.
schools, small businesses. So that's huge. What would you identify if you were to say, someone's listening, they're like, wow, we would like one of those someday down the line. What were
Yeah.
the seeds that were planted, the concrete
Mhm.
actions, if you could track something that you
Yeah.
think led to somebody giving that estate gift?
That's a good question. And I want to give kudos to past development directors who have sat in my seat prior to me
Mhm.
because it's the work and the outreach that they did years before I even got here that planted the seeds for something like this to happen. And a few things that you can try to implement now to benefit the future generations would be to offer some sort of estate planning within your school or your church, or a combination, which we have done those in the past couple years. We're hoping to bring one back. And what happens is you offer a seminar down at the church. People are invited, welcome to come, have pizza, or you could do it over rolls in the morning. But being able to teach people about how to set up their wills, what's important, how just a small fraction of what they have could be set up for their school or parish, then how that can ultimately benefit the generations down the road. So being able to give your community the tools it takes to set it up easily. If you want people to navigate this all themselves, it's much harder to do, but if you can help inspire and plant those seeds, that's what will ultimately bring them to want to put you in their will and ultimately get you an estate gift. And again, it's another uncomfortable conversation. A lot of development work seems to be on the uncomfortable conversation side, which is important to have those strong relationships, because not everybody wants to talk about death or their wills, but to make it seem like a very fruitful experience with how, even after you're done on this earth, your work is not done, and how they can still continue to make an impact down the road.
Well, it's very missional. I mean, people
Right.
like your feeling, I can do this work, I can do it well. I can do it in
Mhm.
with was it Pizza Ranch? I can do this with
Yeah.
Pizza Ranch, but my heart longs for more. I want to have more
Yeah.
impact, not just here, but in an eternal sense, something that lasts
Mhm.
beyond me. People desire to leave a legacy, and that can
Right.
take shape in all kinds of ways, and that can be played out. So, I love that it has to be tied into the mission, and it is tied into
Yeah.
that, and just the beauty of offering a real concrete solution, an opportunity for people to learn, can be that doorway through which they enter the church, the doorway through which they opened their minds to something more, their hearts to something more than just me,
Mhm.
myself, my family. Because yes,
Mhm.
your family is super important, but you also have this greater Catholic family, this Christian family that we live in, and that we're
Right.
all, there is no them and us. It's only us, like we
Mhm.
together on this journey towards heaven. And that all ties in together. So, I love that idea of offering a real concrete, it's the same as um, when you could offer a seminar for people that are
Right.
struggling. Are you having trouble paying down your debt? Let's teach you how to pay
Mhm.
down your debt. Oh, by the way, when you do this, now you have room to tithe to the
Yes.
church. Right, and, oh,
Yes.
by the way, did you know that you can set up long-term plans too, and we've got a seminar next month that'll actually show you how to plan so that your kids are set up for the rest of their lives and your church and your
Yeah.
school. I mean, the church thrives when it lives in, like, the practical lives of people, that faith and life aren't separated, but they're actually meant to be so closely united that you can't tell the two apart.
And I think that's what's really beautiful, is that when you are setting up those estates and in looking into your wills, it's like it could be a win-win for everybody. You can still fully take care of your family, your grandchildren. There's a way to make sure everybody's taken care of by spreading that wealth and not forgetting your church or a school in your community that's been impactful. That's important and a neat opportunity we all have. And so I encourage anybody listening, if you haven't had the time to sit down and maybe look through your will or update it lately, now is a good time, because you could really make a huge impact. And I think, going back to that $3 million gift we talked about, it's making sure that we continue to talk about gifts like that. That was a large gift. We had one from Dennis Gretkin years ago, and these all were huge movements and campaigns, ways that we want to continue talking about these people, so others in the community can hear, wow, he was the gentleman who did this. Wow, they impacted the school in this way, making sure that people are aware that this type of giving is so impactful.
Well, and talk a little bit about how when development is done well like this, when it's
Mhm.
embraced as a part of the mission and the ministry of the church through Catholic schools, like, what actually changes in the life of the school or parish? Like, what are you guys able to do now because of gifts like this?
It makes the fruit of developing the school in the future. My whole job is development. And to me, that means how can we be forward thinking for this school and not being afraid to change? And I think that's also a hard topic for people to talk about is change. And change can be done well and it can bear great fruits down the road. But sometimes it's hard to get people behind maybe the new change that's coming down the line, but it's able to be forward thinking for what are we lacking in the school? What kind of, especially for the school, what kind of curriculum do we need? Where are we needing to grow? Whether that's classrooms, do we need to grow in athletics? Do we need to grow in the fine arts? So it's really taking all of this into consideration, being able to be blessed by these estate gifts and being able to look into that future of what is next needed for our students.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, even like really practically, like we know that the community, like our city is growing,
Yes.
so you can actually start to dream now. How many of them do we want to be here with us
Right.
at our school? I mean, it solves real practical problems that we deal
Mm.
with in the day to day. We do that.
Right.
And, I even like forward thinking from there. If you
Mhm.
can plant enough seeds and build the kingdom here in the school, and you
Right.
can steward the estate gifts and things like that, you can begin to ask really audacious questions and seek answers
Yes.
like what would need to be in place for us to be the first school that doesn't have to charge tuition.
Right.
Like it when you can have big hairy audacious goals when you're forward thinking in that way, and when people say yes to the call.
Yeah.
Right? There's I forget who the saint is, but he says, "Some people give by going, and some
Mm.
people go by giving," right? There's
I
probably one
love that.
that's probably like a standard one in the development world, right? Is if there's a mission trip going on, right? Some people give by going, and then
Yes.
other people go by giving. They support the mission, right? But that's what it is. I mean, that's really the call of the Christian from the beginning. You look in the
Right.
book of Acts, the first thing they did was they prayed and they took care of those who needed to be taken care of, and the people gave to the church. Is that really simple model, and this is how
Mhm.
we live it out even today.
And I think that's a cool thing you just said. It's we wanna take care of our students now that we have currently. We want to take care of the buildings that we have currently, but being able to be gifted estate gifts or going into a campaign, it allows us to expand out to how do we welcome these new families? How do we grow to accept more people to back up this mission? So it really allows us to go bigger in our thought process, which is it's huge because in the past we haven't been in the capacity to do such things, but now being able to have a dreamlike mentality, it really changes the whole landscape of the development world. So it's an exciting time to be a development director at Gehlen Catholic, I can tell you that much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, one kind of final thing I just want to flesh out for people then, right? You start having these dreams about where can we go. How do you communicate that out to people? The community. Because I think there's this tension, right, of
Mhm.
we see where we could go, and we
Yep.
need to marry that with people's expectations, open it up for feedback without
Mhm.
letting everybody's opinion overwhelm our leadership and our
Right.
directionality. How do you walk that line with people? That's kind of the last thing I'd like to flesh out
Yeah.
in this
I
dream
have a
mentality.
I have a couple thought processes with that. The first one being, that largest estate gift we got allowed us to go into a master plan for this school. This allowed specialized people to come into the building to see where we were lacking, to see what needed improvement, to see how and where and why the campus and the building would need to expand. It gave us a roadmap to begin studying. So it wasn't Amy Jungers in development dreaming up where this expansion should go. It's these experts in the field saying, this makes sense. And this is why we believe you need it, because within the feasibility study, it was able to show us your town is growing. Here's what you can expect in 5, 10, 15 years. So they gave us the data to back some decisions, which I think is beautiful. Also in development world, you build these relationships with people who could be very impactful down the road. It's very interesting to learn what their interests are and maybe how those could build in the future generations. Do we know somebody who loves the egg world who can maybe help us spearhead? How do we get to allowing FFA to come into the school? Helping take the ideas and the passions of some of these other people to feed into that roadmap of the future, I think is important. It's good to hear people's ideas because ideas aren't wrong, opinions aren't wrong, but it's always important to get the
Sorry.
maybe some, it depends. Good point, good point. It's good to listen to what people have
It
to
it
say
was a
because
that
they
was a
wanna be valued.
it was a very PC line.
Oh, that's hilarious. So I think it's important to hear what everybody has to say, but ultimately there has to be a group of experts within the building who know what does go on day to day and what is the next best step for the students. And I think having a roadmap, having that committee of people who want to be the dreamers, but also the realists at the same time to know what path you could go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that something is really great for people just to start with of if you're listening to this episode and you're desiring to get to this point where you can feel free to dream, like you
Mhm.
have to start planning now, right? None of this
Right.
happened on accident. This is the fruit of all the decisions and actions people have taken up until now, the people who
Right.
are in the positions to make those decisions.
Right.
So if you are desiring this kind of freedom to bear fruit, to dream about what the future can be, to paint vision for people and lead them in that direction, you
Yep.
have to be ready and have this desire to make the decisions now that will get you there tomorrow.
Right. And that's one thing I want to add to that is also it's okay to be selfless in the work that you're doing. Because I think of the past development director who put in the work, who put in the labor, who planted these seeds and didn't get to see the fruit come out on the other side. But now it's my turn to help plant the seeds in some of these benefactors to show how they could maybe be the future of the next development director to bless the next generation of students. So, not all the work that we put in today, we will see tomorrow. So, it's important to know that yes, you might be the one who's the boots on the ground for the next 5 to 10 years, planting these seeds, getting these people excited, but you don't know your fruit until you're maybe out of the position.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it speaks to the excellence of all the people in the room that there is this continuity. Because
Right.
here's something I would point out that happens often in churches is that they think from pastor to pastor.
Yep.
And it's almost as if when the new pastor comes in, it's a blank slate. Nothing that we did before matters
I could see
up
that.
until this point. But there's a real value to having some continuity that
Yep.
exists outside of the individual, but lives in the position. It lives in the seat that is there to be filled, vacated and
Right.
filled. And so, how do you? This might be really helpful for our listeners. I'm sorry, throwing another question at you.
Bring it on.
Yeah, how do you guys set that up for success? Because you might have people with very different personalities
Mhm.
sitting in this same seat with the development director, right? How how
Mhm.
do how does that continuity play out so that the person coming in receives what's been done and like is handed that baton well to continue to
Yeah.
run?
I think it's very important and it sounds lame, but it's like the documentation of the relationships, the learning of the people, trying to understand them before you even have to go meet them. So we have folders and folders of past benefactors or past people who mention that they would like to put Galen in their estate. And it's good data for me to see the conversations that have happened in the past and trying to pick that up so they know you're still valued. We still see you even though it's not the same person and I think that is hard because not every personality is the same. And there will be a learning curve with all of the benefactors that you have. But I think it's making sure that people feel appreciated and seen is a huge piece of development work.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the insights. This has been a great episode. I'm sure you got like little things turning and churning in people's
Yeah.
brains. There's a lot of little golden nuggets there. I'm wondering, you guys have done such great work. Is there anywhere you'd like to invite our listeners to go to connect with you or support the mission there at Galen?
Absolutely. So, GehlenCatholic.org is our website. I don't know what type of person you are, if you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're a grandparent, if you're in the development world, we are in enrollment time right now, accepting new students. It's such a blessing to have a private Catholic school in our community. And my kiddos go here, like you mentioned at the start. That's another very sweet spot about my job. All the hard work, all of the hours, all the night meetings are not only benefiting 500 students are benefiting my own kiddos, and that really bears the fruit for me to see the change happening in their lives. So enroll today. This place is amazing. But also, if you're looking to give, or learn more about estate planning, please reach out. My email is ajungers@gehlencatholic.org, and I'd love to hear from anybody who has questions.
Wonderful. Well, Amy, thank you for being on the podcast. All right.
Thank
And
you for asking.
absolutely. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, don't let it be just another good idea. Text it to a priest or a friend in ministry and start the conversation today. And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.